So it's just mind with your weight. So the mind with the body mind, as the Buddhists call it, rather than the head mind. My mind is in my body. So I'm feeling rather than thinking. So just feel the energy. So as I sink into the leg is already returning me. I sink and something is already coming out. So we just want to feel the energy leading the body. The body follows the energy. So the more I can reduce the force, the more the energy will become apparent. So the softer you are, the more energetic you can potentially become. And just gradually bringing the awareness to these thick muscles in the lower back. So that's what we're working on. So to get into them, you need that sort of determination of someone that's just going to do a difficult physical task. So without those muscles working in a very active way, you're just all arms and legs. So these muscles knit the arms and the legs together. So in order to activate them, you really need to be in the legs. So they need a real sort of foundation to spring from, and that's these legs that are really full of your weight. Okay, so let's just bring it to riding horse. And just feel them. Just want to just be able to put your mind there and just feel the quality of mind that resides there. It's sort of tough, determined, ready to do whatever it's called to do. So not squeamish, you know, so. Okay, so let's just try some breathing. So just getting into those muscles. Yeah, so the only way you'll really activate them is if they have to work. So you have to imagine resistance to your movement. Otherwise, they won't kick in. So here it's really difficult to pull my hands in, and here it's even more difficult to pull them out. So here my belly muscles really tightening to pull my hands in, and here those muscles at the back just tightening. Yeah, so it's opposite. It's the opposite of relaxed, really. Yeah, so that sort of first stage of Tai Chi, of everything being relaxed and easy, that is very much a first stage, which most people never get out of. So imagine one of those bodybuilders really pulling the cables here and then having to really push something out. Yeah, so you don't want your mind to be in the hands. You want your mind to be in the muscles. So this is what the bodybuilders are very careful about. Yeah, so when they're pushing the bar, their mind isn't with the hands and the bar, it's with the muscles that are being used. Because it's only when you're mindful of the muscles that the muscles actually develop with any sort of aesthetic contour. Otherwise, they just look lumpen and stupid. So I'm really feeling those muscles. And then I really feel here. Yeah, so it's like you're wearing a corset. There's like this tight belt, wide belt of muscle around your waist. So it requires your mind to be in the muscle and also for your mind to be continuous. If there's any sort of distraction, then it will basically, the thread will snap. So just feel when you come in here, it's that in order to start coming out, you have to sort of go in a little bit extra. You have to go really right in so that you've got a bit of movement to come out. And then when you come back in, you've first got to open up a little bit more before you can bring it back. So just feel the spirit. Ooh, it's like you almost open up too much here. And then you can come back, and then you hear you completely close down, but you sort of bounce out of it. And just feel it really sort of making the spine really fluid and bendy. Okay, so let's just bring it back. Riding horse, so just let it settle down. And again, just feeling those muscles. It's a bit like having your mind in your kidneys. It's the same sort of area, but we really want to feel the mind that would activate the muscle rather than just the location. Okay, and now let's just move with the spirit. So just feeling the spirit calling from outside. It's just like, you know, if you were standing and concentrating and then someone was to call your name from over here, you'd just be round, yeah? And so there'd be no time, that it'd be almost infinitely quick, because there'd be a sense that you're already there, yeah? So this is what we want here. I'm with the body, with my body mind, but I'm also with the spirit, with my spirit mind. And so here, it's calling from over here and drawing me. I'm being called to action. As John would put it, the call to arms. Yeah, so when you're called, you move towards it. You heed the call. So you turn towards it and you move towards it. So there's a call from here, and wow. It's just a very natural response. So just feel how just that call brings your energy up. It lightens you so that you can move more easily. Because if you're really stuck in your posture, you're just a bit immobile. So there needs to be a lightness to you so that you can easily move. You know, so the body is sinking and heavy, but there's almost a sense of something up here hovering. And it's that moves, and my body just follows with it. Exactly, you know, when we go in the foot and bounce out, it's this energy that's rising that lightens me so that I can flow the other way. It's the same, but just this is just coming from spirit and the other is just energy. Yeah. So there's a call from outside. Wow. So this is really important. It's like the Catholics say, you know, that God is always calling you to prayer. So when you decide to pray, what you're doing is heeding the call. It's not a decision that you have made. You've just heard. You've noticed that the call is there. So there's that sense. This is what we really have to wake up in ourselves. We don't realize it, but we are totally cut off from the world that we inhabit. We inhabit our own bubble, which we've made to look like the real world, but it's not the real world. But that sort of insulated, enclosed bubble, it just means that we don't need to pay respect. We don't really need to feel things. We can just treat them with contempt. Yeah. So this is the thing of the ground, just feeling the ground drawing you, it's sucking you. The ground is endlessly compassionate. It's calling you into it. It's not just a hard surface upon which you trudge. Yeah. So the ground is sucking me down, and it's not gravity, it's something else. Yeah. But the heavens are drawing me up. Yeah. And every object is actually pulling at me. Every object is tugging you, is calling your attention. It's just saying, look at me, I'm here. Yeah? And we just ignore it all. And that's why we don't really develop the correct tone, because it's only really when you're allowing yourself to be pulled by everything, so everything wants a little bit of you, that's when you develop the correct tension that just holds you together. Yeah? This drawing into your own center. Yeah. And that's the last thing people want, because for me, the average person is just really lonely. And they're lonely because they're in this bubble, because they never really make proper connections. Yeah. And the stronger the bubble gets, the more lonely they get, and the more they cut off. It's just like a vicious circle. Yeah. So you're always feeling yourself being sucked toward. You can just do it. You can just walk down the street. I was doing it yesterday, and this beautiful street, tree-lined street that's also lined with parked cars, and you can just feel it. The trees pull at you, and the cars don't. Man-made objects are lifeless. Yeah. Unless in a sense you've invested them with a little bit of life. Yeah. So like antique furniture and things will have a little bit of life. But trees are really lively, even the trees that live in cities that are obviously not at their happiest. Ooh, I'm being called. And just, if you were really being called by someone, what would happen to your heart? What would happen to your spirit when you heard that, especially if it's a voice like you recognized? Someone that you wanted to communicate with. Yeah, and so why? There'd be a lift of brightness would come up. And they would feel that. Yeah, so this is what we want. We want to be able to imagine sufficiently that we give this the same energetic response we would give a loved one that was calling our name. Yeah. And what John would say, that if you can't do that, then basically, as far as he's concerned, you're not human. Yeah. Remember when I sort of first felt energy, and I told him, wow, I felt energy. He says, oh, welcome to the human race. Yeah. So, whoa. And whoa. Okay. Now just back to riding horse. Now let's just do a little bit of rowing. So this, rowing in a sense gets these muscles the best. Yeah. The trouble with it gets them both at the same time, but it's a good place to start. Yeah, so as you bend double, so as you go down, this is when you're actually reaching out. Yeah, and when you tighten those muscles at the back, this is when you're pulling the elbows back. So forwards. Just make sure they're really stretched, those muscles, and then just slowly start contracting and squeezing them. when I was at school, we had this sort of physics teacher. He was really good and a nice bloke as well. And he used to have this sort of pet saying. He used to say, don't think that we scientists are actually investigating reality. We are not. We are investigating models of reality. Yeah. So that's a bit like just being stuck inside your bubble, being a subject that is observing this object-laden world. So an ego or a self that's separate from what's outside. So that's what we're trying to get away from. So this is what we have to be really careful of, is that, in our work, so let's just come back, is that, it's called internal work. So in a sense, you're going inside, but you want that going inside not to be a retreat. It's not as though you become oblivious to what's outside. You're just drawing in the rational mind, the thinking mind, so that your spirit mind, your body mind, your heart mind can just be totally alert and with the things around you. This is like the big drawback of meditation. They all tend to be a little bit sort of disappear up their own arseholes, as John would say. So the best example I've seen of like meditation was there was a series of 3 programs on Channel 4 about Indian sadhus, yeah. And one of the programs was about one of the popes. They've got Hinduism has like 3 different popes in India, the heads of the sects, and they were following one of them. He's a lovely bloke, and you could tell he'd got really advanced. And they just showed him at the end, just meditating. He was just sitting under a tree, and he wasn't in any sort of posture. He was just sort of just looking up into space, but you could just really see that he was just a channel, yeah, for energy, the spirit, yeah. And he was empty, just total empty mind, yeah. So, we just need a brightness that is just so attentive to what's around. There's no room for the self. There's no room for you. Okay, now let's just turn it. And again, just imagine you're in the pool. So it's really quite difficult to turn because the water's really resisting you. So you really have to just dig into the leg in order to get the leg involved. And you just want the leg coming up into the spinal erector. Just really feel as though these muscles in your lower back are just extensions of your leg. So your leg is extending up that muscle and then into the arm. So here. Yeah, so we've spent years, feeling Tai Chi as being something that's relatively easy. You sort of relax through it. And now we just want to really get as tense as possible. But it's a very dynamic tension that's moving around all the time. It's the tension of an athlete. Just really feel it coming from this whole area to your torso. It's very much working the torso. Having spent years working the legs, now we just need to extend the legs up into the torso. Just get into the legs, really sink. Just imagine you're in the pool. You know how difficult it is to just purchase on the bottom of the pool, because basically you're a lot lighter when you're in the water. So you've got to really sink down to power the leg into that muscle on the back. So, okay, so let's just bring it back. Now just really feel them. It's like they're throbbing. Yeah, so I really recommend just trying squats. Like 50 kilos or so. So, where you just, you have to really do it correctly, otherwise the bar won't come up. Yeah, because when you do squats, you're down here with the bar behind your neck, and you can't afford just to power up from the legs, because if you do, it will make the back buckle, and then the bar will just pull you forwards. So the first thing you do when you fire up is not the legs, it's these muscles. You just scream and just throw your head up. And then there's a sense that the legs just follow that movement. So it's very much spirit. So it's very Tai Chi in a way, this idea that the body's following the spirit. And then when you finish the squats, then you just feel these really strong, and you just got this really embedded posture. You can have straight legs. The legs can be completely straight, but there's this sense that you're just in the ground because you've been driven down by that heavy bar. And it's just the mind. That's what I used to find interesting, just this determined, tough mind. As Verne used to say, a mind that takes no prisoners. Prisoners are an inconvenience, so you just shoot them. Yeah. Okay, and now just turning, so trying to keep this relatively still and just turning. So now we're really feeling just one at a time. So here I'm just tightening that muscle and just letting it pull me round. So let the head go a bit further. It's almost like you could almost look behind yourself, yeah, and just feel the muscle. And again, just feel the mind that tightens that muscle. And this is like completely non-bourgeois. It really toughens. Whoa. And then let's just turn it into like waving hands in the clouds. But you know, we're so used to just turning from here. Yeah, so we just want to get away. You can let these turn if you want, but you want the turning to start here in these muscles at the back, connected to the legs. Yeah, so just, you know, it's like the hips can turn as like a last resort. You just feel it's just a very different mind. Ooh. Yeah, so it's more like a mind that you could use to fight. Yeah, so it's a mind that could inflict injury, but it's also a mind that can tolerate injury being inflicted to it. So, you know, I just walked from the car park and you know, loads of cats around here, they're all feral. And just seeing the tomcats, and they're all really battered, yeah. A lot of them have just got one eye because the other one's been damaged in a fight, or they've got half an ear, yeah. Some of them have got these really open wounds that stink. And just, you just see, you know, they're just settled inside themselves. They're just tough and ruthless. So that's the feeling. You know, so you know, things like happiness, that just it'd just be considered really Nancy to even think about something like that. Why is that a concern? So again, it's I'm having to move against the water, and I want the movement to start in that muscle in the back. I want it to start in the lower back, and then it will have the right mood, the right energy. So that's it. It's a bit like pulling carrots out of the ground, you know. So, and so what's interesting about it is that basically there isn't any resistance. You know, there isn't water here. There aren't carrots in the ground that I'm pulling out. But I can really get a sense that there is. So how is that? And really it's because the two sides of the body are sort of fighting each other. Yeah. So this leg is trying to push me this way, and this leg is just trying to stop it a little bit so that so I really have to mean it to get round. So the body's basically being worked isometrically. You're working the body against itself, one side against the other side, in order to build up the strength and the power and the energy inside. And then when you release that, you explode. It just bursts out really quickly. And you can see when it gets really slow, that's when you're working the hardest. Yeah. It's like when you see the bodybuilders, you know, they're lifting that bar and they just scream and explode into this lift. Yeah, and if the bar wasn't there, their arms would just go straight up. But you see this thing just growing up gradually because it's just so difficult to lift. And they have to keep that explosion going for like seconds. Yeah, so it's really intense. It's got the feeling of like tearing something. Yeah. You know, they talk about tearing silk. It's not so much silk, it's more like a bloody carpet. Yeah? Something that's really quite tough and thick. Okay, so let's just bring it back. It's my firm belief, you know, that one of the reasons, you know, that we just get everything so wrong is because nowadays we don't really work the bodies in a natural way. So even when we do exercise, it's normally some strange regime. And you see people, you know, jogging through the park with headphones on. Yeah. Yes, someone was telling me, you know, their friend came out, she said, let's go for a walk. So the friend came round and the friend insisted on listening to this podcast as she was walking. Yeah? And so it's, you know, everyone they have to be doing two things at once at least. Yeah. So never mindful of anything, you know, just these scattered, ugly minds. Yeah. So we just want to be just totally in there and just quiet. It's the quietness of an athlete that's resting. Yeah. You just want to feel any noise up here and you'll start to float. You'll come out of these muscles. Yeah. Okay. And now let's just move back and forwards, back and forwards. So, but again, just working really from the back. Yeah. So I just want to work these muscles in the back. And again, just feeling like the movement is really difficult. So I really have to mean it. So like you really are pushing something, you're pushing a piece of furniture or something. So the exercise sort of packs you into those muscles. You're driven into those muscles by the work. And then they have no choice but to become activated. Yeah, so you just want to create a situation where the mind has no choice but to remain quiet and on the job. It's a sort of job that was, you know, you have to be extra careful for your own safety. So that's the feeling. Yeah, so the muscle contracts when you pull. Yeah, so the pulling that bends the legs. So the hamstrings through the glutes, then knit into those spinal erectors. So here, that's the difficult. This is the easy bit, sending the hand out. So it's very much like pulling a rope. Yeah. And just imagine you're at the jetty. Yeah, and someone throws a rope in and say, "Can you pull me in?" Yeah, so you're pulling this fucking boat. Yeah, just imagine just how, and yet it would have that same quality of movement. You're really pulling hard, and you just feel this thing slowly start to glide. Yeah, so that's the quality of the motion. And you can't afford to get sort of carried away with it. Yeah, so you can't be doing this sort of thing because then you just won't have the power. Yeah, so it really needs to be just down and gritty. Just feel it needs a good stretch here so that you can then tighten it. So it's already tight, but stretched, and then you just contract. So there's this sense of almost, when you activate the muscle, like a sense of almost biting. You grip, there's a clench. I grip and pull. And get it in the legs as well. Yeah, so the legs are fighting each other. This is pushing me back, but this is trying to stop me. And then I just have to really stay down because that will tend to bring me up. Yeah, so everything's working, and it's all coming from that determined, tough mind in your lower back. Yeah. Okay, let's try the other leg. So just start off gentle and just let it just appear. It sort of develops. This is what John was always very adamant about, that, you know, the technique comes from the spirit. Yeah. So if you've got the right frame of mind, the right spirit, then the technique will just develop correctly. So if you've got a light, airy sort of frame of mind, then it'll just be light and airy, yeah, which is fine. It's just not what we're working on today. Yeah. So this is just subterranean, a subterranean seriousness. Good. Yeah, so just, if you've ever worked as a labourer, then just cast your mind back. Yeah, so when you start labouring, it's like there's something sort of soul destroying in its tough monotony, until you get into that and just start enjoying the physical exertions that you're having to make. And then it almost becomes like sexual, almost becomes, it's of the body. The body's just working so well. It's like meditation, counting the breaths. You know, I tell people to do it. How can I count the breaths? It's so boring. Yeah. And it is boring until you realize that that next breath is the most enjoyable thing in the world. Yeah. And then it's easy, because there's nothing else you'd rather be doing. I mean, things only become difficult with the resentful mind thinking, oh, I'd rather be doing something else. I don't want to be doing this. Yeah. So we've just got to be in the activity, just enjoying the body working really well. Just feeling it in the back. Something ripples up. So it's pulling down this one and it's rippling up this one. Yeah. So the two sides of the body doing opposite things. This is the way the body wants to work. Now I just have to make sure I stay down. I stay sunk, otherwise it'll just, it's like the top will come off the vessel and everything will leak out. So here, just, yeah. Okay. So let's just bring it back. And then just feel it, yeah. So absolutely brimming with feeling, but no emotion. Yeah. So you've got all these sensations going on inside the body, but you're not letting it disturb your inner sobriety and equilibrium. So we don't want to block out the feelings. So a lot of people get confused between feelings and emotions. So for most people, they're pretty much the same thing, but actually they're almost opposites. Yeah. And just feeling those muscle trains. Yeah, so from the heel, up the back of the leg, across the glutes, up the spinal erector. You can either get them to cross over or they can just go up the same side, it doesn't matter. Like a snake, it's coming all the way up. The tail is down there under my heel, and it comes up, and then the snake is thickest here in my lower back, and then it comes up and its head is in my hand. Yeah. And these snakes, oh, they're just sort of wriggling a little bit. They're always moving because they're alive. Okay, let's try. If you've got the broom handle there, you don't really need it. You can just pretend that I'll get mine since I spent 7 shekels buying it. So just the paddle, just paddling along. Yeah. So again, just so down and just pull back, down, and you know, so it's a good exercise because the spine really has to tip a little bit. So just try and get it to be vertical as you send it into the water. And just let your head go with it. So your head goes so your head is looking where the oar is going. And then you are traveling in the opposite direction. So this would be, so you're pulling the water back in order to get yourself to go forwards. Yeah. So 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2. Yeah. So don't let the hips turn. You're trying to sort of just immobilize the hips a little bit. Imagine you're sitting in the canoe. So you're sitting on the seat in the canoe. So your hips won't really be moving that much. So it's all coming from the action in the lower back. So it's all the back. So, and then just really start fighting the stick. So it's like you're trying to twist it and pull it and press it. Yeah. So it's just, you're just almost trying to rile yourself up into a bit of a temper, just to really feel the muscles kicking in the right way. Yeah. And just feel the two sides. So normally they feel quite different. So one side always feels easier than the other. And now just back home. Yeah, so you can do that exercise sitting down, then it just really does immobilize the hips. And it's useful, like, also like when you meditate. You know, so just exercising these muscles a little bit before you start, just to get your mind in the right place. So we just want to make sure that we meditate as a fighter, not meditate as a professional meditator. So we're not in the monastery. Yeah. Yeah, so for me, the more advanced one becomes, the more it just becomes a matter of states of mind. So it's not so much what you do with your body, it's just, you know, can you get yourself into that ruthless state of mind? Or can you get yourself into that compassionate one, you know, that really opens up to the world outside you? And so so that's what I call imagination, just the ability to sort of just become something other than you are, just for the hell of it, for the fun of it, yeah? So my niece's daughter, and she's got this whole chest full of dressing up costumes. And she's like got a princess costume of every color. But when she puts it on, she just takes the air and graces of a prince. She becomes a princess, yeah. It's beautiful. And then she sings all the songs from Frozen. So make believe, yeah. So it's faith, really. It's John always used to say, it all comes from faith. Yeah. That's the beginning of it. And then let's just bring it up. And again, just feel that these are tight and you're being dragged down by the contraction in the back of your legs. You're being dragged into the legs. Yeah? These muscles are working as well. So there's also a thrust up from the ground. So there's always contention. There's always like a little bit of a fight going on inside. And that's basically spirit. And the spirit is just the energy of the fight. Okay, great.